A little bit about history. As we actually, when we started, we looked at how do we associate when somebody asks a layperson what is money. There are certain definitions. So the textbook definition of monies have been given by authorities. So for example, in India, the monetary authority is the Reserve Bank of India, right? The RBI. The RBI has given what constitutes money out here, right? So that the section of RBI actually gives definition of what constitutes money. Then these, what happens to note refund rule. So for example, what happens to all the notes that you have in your pocket? What happens to the currency notes if they were to be damaged, right? How do you refund those? And we'll see that in a moment. How do you sort of deal with that? Typically paper currency, if they were to be soiled, mutilated or destroyed, can you exchange that? That obviously has been the RBI's note refund rules actually define that. So that's with respect to the currency in circulation or motion that we have, right? The textbook, other definition of the textbook that the RBI has given is what constitutes legal tender. So any form of currency, or when we say generally money, has to be legal tender. What does legal tender mean? In simple definition, legal tender means anything that is sanctioned by any authority so that it can be used to transact on various transactions. Now it could be a simple transaction of buying and selling a particular good or a service. So if I were to go to a market and if I were to take a particular set of coins, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, right, 20 rupee coins which are now in circulation, 1 rupee, 2 rupee coins, and if I were to exchange those set of coins to buy apples, for example, right. So if it's like a 50 rupee apple that I need to buy from the market, I give these 20 rupees 2 coins and a 10 rupee coin, and if I were to tender it to the vendor and he accepts that and gives me the apple, he would do that only if those coins that you're delivering to him is treated as legal tender, right? Who decides that? What is a legal tender? It says any official medium, right, of payment recognized. So basically that's the operative word, recognized by law. Which law? The law that basically is given by the government of India. For example, in terms of money, the law is set by the government of India, operated through the RBI, right? So therefore, the Reserve Bank of India, so the RBI is authorized by the government of India to make a particular set of maybe notes, coins or whatever that it issues as legal tender, right? That's very, very important. So legal tender, by definition, it says official medium, which is medium of exchange, which is recognized by law, can be used to pay for public and private debt, especially taxes to government, and include that. What is not explicitly mentioned here is, obviously it says about taxes and government and stuff, but it stays silent. However, it is implied, it's implicit that you can do transactions on the currency and coins or whatever has been declared as legal tender. So that's very, very important here. So that is definition of money. So tomorrow, if I were to go to the market with, let's say, my set of coins, okay, or older set of coins, they're 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or maybe 50 years ago, the Reserve Bank of India has issued coins which were prior to something called as the Naya Paisa, which came, right? In some time in the 70s, we used to call it, when we were young, we used to call it Naya Paisa or the NP. So the 20 paise coin which came, for example, at that moment, or the 25 paise coin which came years ago, decades ago rather, that was called the Naya Paisa, and prior to that there was different set of coins, right? Now the 10 paise coin, the 20 paise coin and the 25 paise coin are no longer legal tender. That's been mentioned by the RBI. It says that if tomorrow I were to go and take these 20 paise coins and buy a, let's say a bus ticket, right, that would not be treated as legal tender, and somebody or the conductor or the operator of the service can refuse and say that no, these are not valid. You will say no, these are issued by the RBI, these are issued by the Reserve Bank of India, and therefore it is, you need to accept that, right? He would say no, those coins which were issued in the past have been notified to be not legal tender as of today. And the most recent example, why should I go back so long, back in time to say whether it is a 10 paise or a 20 paise coin? The old 500 rupee note that we all know, right? The older rupees 500 rupee note that during 2016, before that we all used. The older 500 rupee note is on that particular day of November 8th, 2016 ceased to become a legal tender, right? It did not become legal tender. From that day onwards, when the Prime Minister came on the TV and said that, this 500 rupee note and the 1000 rupee note will not be legal tender. That's what it means. So it's very, very critical for us to understand that what is sanctioned by, in today's world, what is sanctioned by the government or any authority to be legal tender, that will also be, that will also be money. That's very, very critical. So understand that. If you go back in time, how old is money? I mean, now we all know in today's time it's the Reserve Bank of India, the Government of India, that's anything that issued by them is called money. In the olden 1000 years ago, 1500 years ago, 2000 years ago, the definition of money were who's the authority. At that in those times there were kings, right, on a particular kingdom, and this kingdom was used to span several hundred square kilometers. He was the authority. He used to give he used to give under his seal, he used to give the coins, and these are the specific coins that we are talking about today, which now are, we can call them as antique coins today. But these kings or the kingdoms used to issue specific sort of coins. Those were legal tender during those times. So today, if you were to possess these coins, obviously the value of those coins will be very high. However, these are not legal tender today. But during those times, the first Mauryan coin, maybe 1500 years ago or 1200 years ago, the first coin was issued during the Mauryan Empire period, and Vijayanagara. Similarly, 500 years ago, the Mughals issued certain coins, and this obviously the coin issued by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was also legal tender during his reign, right? He was issued under the seal. So whoever is the monetary authority and whoever is issuing that coin, that during those times will be defined as money, right? So and this is obviously the currency that is valid today. The 500 rupees, the new note that we all see today, that is legal tender and that's valid today. No other 500 rupee note which was issued prior to 2016, right? Until that time, the 1000 rupee note is now not legal tender. It does not exist today. So if you were to have in possession of the 1000 rupee note today, that will not be legal tender. That has ceased. That has stopped to become, it's no longer money. So if you have that note and you go to the market, nobody's going to accept that. That's not legal tender, right? So these are the very basic. We just saw a lot of different definitions of money, but it's sufficient for us to know that whatever is issued by an authority under an act today, and what is legal tender in any market. The legal tender in the historic times was different, as we saw behind, and legal tender currently is different. So anything that is issued by the monetary authority is obviously money, right?